and you notice at certain times, maybe you're feeling really, really high, really elevated. At other times, you're feeling really low. Sometimes just by thinking about the situations you've been in, you can kind of see what caused it. Maybe every day, every Wednesday, you find yourself in a slump after lunch. And then you think, oh, I have lunch with this person every day or every Wednesday. And then you can realize that a certain type of association has a certain type of effect on your consciousness. So in Bhakti, we become very highly aware of the effects on our consciousness. It's really the science of determining what consciousness leads to which result. And in the end, the highest is Krishna consciousness. We're trying to develop this high consciousness. So one major thing we can do in our daily life, become more aware of our associations and how it affects our consciousness. As I mentioned, attention is our most valuable asset of all, and everyone's fighting for this attention. You drive down the 101 freeway, you'll see all these billboards vying for our attention. Turn on the radio, you'll hear all these advertisers vying for our attention. The phone is vibrating every few seconds, people trying to get our attention. And it's important to realize that the phone has become a main theater of our association these days. Maybe not even so much we're seeing people in person, but we're constantly associating with people through the medium of our phone. And it has the same effect on our consciousness as if we were meeting people face to face. We're actually being shaped by all of this. Everything that goes into our eyes, everything that goes into our ears, it drains into our hearts and it affects us. It shapes our future. We're very much open to suggestion. That's one of the qualities of the soul, is that we are open to suggestion. We can go one way or another based on influences in our life. So become aware of that and realize that wherever our attention goes, our energy flows. And wherever our attention goes, that's how we are building our future. Bhakti, to take a step back, Bhakti yoga is the science of developing love in our heart, developing relationship with each other and with the Supreme Personality, Krishna. It brings us to a higher level of awareness of all things in our life, especially our relationships. It's really the yoga of relationship. Yeah, JM, you got something?
Yeah, there was a question on the board. Let me know when you would like to take it. I can
Oh,
take
yeah,
it.
please.
Yeah. Hades asking, what do you recommend for when you have to be with folks you're not so fond of or their energy?
Yeah, great question. A lot of times life will bring us into situations where we have to deal with people that we're not so fond of their energy or their association, such as at work or just out doing the things we have to do. It's recommended, you can take this at a couple levels. If you're at work, it's good to be official and courteous, but not go too deep and not share too much of your heart with these people. So if your boss asks you to do something, you can say, yes, sir, absolutely, sir, but don't attach too much emotion to it. Just be dispassionate and do what you have to do to keep. You need that money, you need to get paid for your job. So you want to keep a good relationship, but don't get too emotionally attached. If things start to get weird, you can always keep your internal world focused on your spiritual truth, whereas externally you appear attached to your job, you appear to be very much interested in the reports and everything. But if we stay kind of detached internally, that can avoid any sort of issues with people, and we can continue to use everything that comes to us for higher service. Is that helpful? I'll take it from your heart emoji that it was helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And please, I'd like this to be a discussion rather than a monologue. So, highly recommend asking questions, bringing your voice into the conversation here. And as I mentioned, the phone is becoming a main way that we interact with people and with the world, and it's quite dangerous because it's can be very random. Would we want to randomly associate with people? Would we want to let other people choose what we're becoming? Or do we want to be more intentional about the people we associate with, the influences in our life, in our mind? The idea of scrolling is that it's completely random. And it's not for our highest benefit to be random with where we give our attention. As I mentioned, attention is our most valuable asset. Would you randomly invest your dollars, or would you be more intentional about where you're investing your money? Would you randomly give your time, or would you want to sit down and think how to use your time in a thoughtful way? Similarly, we can design what goes into our life, into our ears, into our eyes through our phone, rather than let it be random. And it's funny how it's called a feed. So it's kind of what we're consuming, what we're eating, right? So we want to eat healthy foods. We want to be fresh and tasty foods, not just any random thing put into our mouth. So if we can have that same level of discernment for things that go into our eyes and into our ears, it's highly consequential what goes into our eyes and what goes into our ears. It affects our minds. Maybe you've had the experience of watching a scary movie at night, and then your sleep is disturbed, or you think about scary things the next day, or even further into the future. So if we can see that that also can affect us on this realm of social media, and we'll start to become more aware and more careful about what we let in. One thing is, a lot of times I've noticed I don't really like to unfollow people because I feel like I might hurt their feelings. Have you ever had that experience? I saw a study recently where some professionals said that their inbox was full, and maybe 90% of the things that they were having to read were not relevant to their work, and it was just wasting their time and slowing them down. And instead of having a slightly uncomfortable moment of, unsubscribing or asking to be taken off that list, they were just keeping these weights tied around their ankles for months and years. And it's similar with, I know, our inboxes and our feeds. Have you seen anything that maybe you don't like repeatedly and you just keep accepting it? It could be a good idea to take a moment and just unfollow and curate your life a little more intentionally, because social media can be full of complete nonsense, or it could also be full of the highest spiritual teachings. It just takes a little bit of intention. I see another question here.
Yeah, Anirban is asking what to do when on some days you feel low. It could be because of some issues at home or at work. I know my inner self should not depend on what others say or think, but how to shield myself from external noise? Is japa the only way to do it?
Yeah, we all have high days and low days, and it's japa is a good way to do it, but not the only way. There's many ways that we can shield ourselves from external noise and try to fill up our cup. And it's not a one size fits all. It's good to try many things and see what works for you, have many tools on your tool belt. One thing that works for me, I've noticed, is a journaling practice. I find that just writing down any kind of negative emotions or thoughts, kind of getting them out of my mind and onto the page, helps me to process them. Also, I have a few people on speed dial, some dear friends and mentors who, whenever I'm feeling down, I can call them and they'll instantly pull me up. Maybe your spouse, maybe a family member or a friend who has a generally positive outlook and can inspire you and enthuse you, remind you of all the good things that you've done and all the blessings in your life. You could have maybe some books that inspire you right at your desk that you can open anytime you need some inspiration. Sometimes something as simple as just taking a walk around the block, breathing the fresh air, taking a break from any kind of stress for a few moments. It'll be there when you get back, but it can be nice to clear your mind and take a few moments to kind of recoup rather than let it continue to pile up all around every moment. I'm sure there's a lot of other techniques, but those are a few that I've used successfully. Was that helpful, Anirban? Yeah, and if any of those caught your eye or your ear, maybe just make a mental note to practice that next time you feel low.
Premnition.
Prem, go ahead, James.
I just wanted to add that to me, what has helped is engaging in a like a physical service, some kind of physical activity, so that my brain is just not, you know, overthinking, like gardening and digging some, and you can get your um, anger out on the ground, or just doing the washing the dishes or stuff like that has helped me too. But just distract myself with that type of work, which doesn't involve more mental activity, but rather physical activity.
Yeah, that really resonates. We have multiple dimensions of our being, and when one starts to get depleted, if we kind of turn that one off and turn on another one, it can help us to come back into balance. Thank you, Premanishta.
Yeah, I find just taking deep breaths, like just stopping what you're doing, taking deep breaths can be really beneficial. The breath is always going to bring us back to the present and connect us in. So yeah, just remembering that truth. And also like to get into the body, like just massaging, like feeling your body, literally just pressing your arm and like just parts of your body, or like tapping moves energy through. And it's like, yeah, you can do that anywhere, anytime. So yeah, I find those things helpful.
Nice. Yeah, moving the energy through is crucial
Mm,
when that energy starts to get stagnated.
mm.
There's
And
more
not
space to
being
move.
afraid as well to be with whatever is there, because you can only ever land in Krishna's arms. So,
Mm.
eventually the energy will pass. But yeah, it's just acknowledging where you're at, and if it's something big coming up, then go to those external tools. Otherwise, yeah, trying your best to be with it.
Yeah, thank you. Those are some helpful tools we can add to our tool belt. And the idea to just be aware when this is happening. It's easy to miss it and just live in the negativity, but when we can step out of it and say, "Oh, something is happening, the energy's stagnated, I'm not feeling good. Let me try some of these things," and kind of be a spiritual scientist and do some experiments and see what works best for us, then that'll help us move forward. We have another reflection, JM.
Yeah, Tathagat is asking, Hare Krishna, I had a quick reflection. Endless scrolling is like breaking two, three regulative principles at the same time. Scrolling can become an addiction, intoxication, losing track of time, gambling, and sometimes expose us to content that may lead us to compromise the principle of avoiding illicit relations.
Yeah, good point. It's very consequential. Like I mentioned, it's no small thing. If we're being cheap with our attention, it can have disastrous consequences. So it's extremely important that we are careful with it. Thank you for sharing. So now that we understand the importance of the attention and how consequential it is, the natural next question is, so who should we associate with? What's the highest and best use of our attention? You've probably heard the phrase return on investment. Everyone wants to get the best return on their dollar. And now in this age of consciousness and attention, we can start to think, what's the best return on our attention? If we're going to reflect exactly what we put in, what should we put in? Well, what do we want to become like? Who do we want to be more like? And who are the people right now that are influencing you? That's something you can think about. Take a moment. Which 3 to 5 people in your life are having the most impact on you? Which voices are you hearing in your thinking? And are you choosing this association? Are you choosing the people who are having this great impact on you? Or is it just happening to you? It can be a good thing to reflect on. What voices are you letting into your mind every day? If we want material success, there are voices that can help us with that. If we want whatever we want, we can find voices that can bring it to us. But if we want spiritual depth, if we want to develop our devotion, if we want to develop our heart, we need to find the voices that actually have it. And that's what Bhakti is all about, is developing our purity, our faith, our devotion, our spirituality, developing our heart. And for that, we need to find the sadhus. A sadhu is someone who has a very real spiritual practice. It's someone who's on the path to the goal, which is the sadhya, someone who's practicing to get to the ultimate goal. And we can find sadhus as well. Do you have your hand raised, Premanishta? Or is that from before?
No, she just raised her.
Go ahead.
Maybe mistake.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
sometimes I have run into situations where I start to, I want to help someone with a situation and I start there. And then I get to a point where I feel that now I'm getting just dragged into their situation. And it just starts to become my problem. My mind is always upset and I find it very difficult how to now come out of that situation because now I'm so invested in it, which was not a problem to begin with in my life, but now it is a problem. So if I want to pull myself out, I feel guilty of not helping that person anymore. But then at the same time, so I was just thinking that, I mean, because we're talking about association, and I feel that sometimes we get into these situations, and what is the best way to come out of that type of situation, or how to,
Yeah.
I don't know, how to define my boundaries at how far do I go when I'm trying to help someone.
Yeah, I think I've got your question. A lot of times the easiest to not get into it first of all, rather than try to come out of it after you've already agreed to help and gone deep into it. And learning to say no is an art in itself. And it's something that we can do for ourselves and for others. It's not always better to say yes and to help everyone. Sometimes we do need to put up boundaries, be clear about our boundaries up front. Because once you say, yes, I'll help you without thinking about it, then you might have a lifetime problem. But if we can take a moment to pause and think about, I already have all this other stuff going on. This might not move me in the direction of my ultimate goal, or I've helped this person before and it didn't have much of an impact, or, whatever the situation is. And we can be strong, and sometimes it's actually in their best interest to say no. I mean, every situation's different, but it's good to be careful not to say yes too much and spread ourselves too thin and develop those boundaries. And it's not easy. I mean, I'm pretty bad at saying no myself, but I've been working on it and still can do it with compassion and thoughtfulness. And if you explain to someone honestly why you can't help them or why you need to step away from the situation with sincerity, that's really the best you can do. If they don't accept it, maybe they're not very sincere. But we have to put on our own mask first, as they say in the airplane when, the air mask falls down. First, you have to put on your own mask before you can help anyone else. So if your mask isn't on, there's no use trying to help others too much, or else you might pass out from lack of oxygen. That helpful?
I just wanted to add one more point. Ekan, what you said
Yeah,
was right.
please.
In my case, like what Prema is referring to, helping others might fall also under the, because human life is to help others or serve others, right? Like in one way, we are here to serve our families, our children, serve our boss. Like there is always that we are always helping or serving others. And one of the guidance I've received from Vaish is it always helps to help others under somebody's guidance. In the sense, if you have somebody to guide you, then you can then put it on them. In the sense, I've come so far, and now I'm struggling to help. What should I do? Then you can just follow their instructions. They may say, as you said, this is your boundary, this is all you can do, or step back, this is beyond the realm of what you should be helping. So in such cases, it helps to uh, work under somebody, not work under somebody, but more like always have a mentor who is guiding you to set those boundaries. Then it becomes easier also, that you're helping to the best of your ability. At the same time, you have somebody who's senior, who's experienced, setting the boundaries so that you don't feel guilty because somebody else is also saying the same thing, or maybe saying no, you should continue because this is important. Then you feel more energized. Their energy also comes with you, so that's also helpful at times.
Yeah, great point. Whatever Vice says, better do it. Talk about finding a sadhu. Yeah, in Bhakti, we can't go wrong if we're acting under guidance of a great soul. Yeah, thank you for these questions. It really adds a lot. Please feel free to jump in with any questions you have, and I'll just continue on here. We were just talking about who we want to associate with, the spiritual practitioners, the advanced souls, the sadhus. So there's this term in Bhakti, it's a Sanskrit term, sadhu sangha. So we talked about what a sadhu is, a saintly person, one who is sincerely devoted, has a serious practice. And sangha, it comes from the same root as anga, which is a limb, something that you're attached to, someone you associate with, your company, your influence, whoever you allow to influence you. So sadhu sangha is spiritual company or holy association. We find people who are actually advanced and we spend time with them. And if we want to get the most out of it, there's actually a formula we can use. It's not just spending time with them, because you could spend time with someone, just spend time in the room with them, and that has some benefit, but it may not be optimized. There's a formula we learn in the Bhagavad Gita to optimize how to get the most benefit from associating with a sadhu. And it's a three-part formula. One is to approach with humility. One is to render service or help them in some way. And the next is to ask questions sincerely. So we can do that in the digital world too. We can fill our feed with sadhus. There's a lot of sadhus I know that have Instagram accounts, and you can follow them. You can even render them some service, potentially. You can ask questions. And it's a spiritual thing. It's just as powerful through the spiritual world, through the internet as in person it can be. So we have access to incredible sadhus at any moment. It's really amazing. And people might not understand that the Vedas, the teachings of the universe, the user manual for this universe, was floating around in the air since the beginning of time. But it took an advanced person to be able to tune in, like Vyasadeva, the great sage. He tuned in and he wrote it down. But now we can compare that to the internet, which is just floating around at all times. And all you have to do is have the right tool to tap into it. So all knowledge, all people really are at our fingertips. We can reach them in just a few moments if we just tune into it. And that's a manifestation of the spiritual reality that we're all connected to. So maybe you can think in your life, in your bhakti practice right now, who actually is a sadhu that you know, and who makes you want to improve yourself, makes you want to become better, who makes you want to advance in bhakti. Take a moment to think of one or a couple personalities. Who increases your faith, your bhakti, your love and devotion just by seeing them or hearing them or being around them. You thought of somebody? I would argue that any moment that you're scrolling randomly, it'd be a better use of your time to be associating with them. Would you agree? And we can. It just takes some intentionality. Maybe curate your feed so that you're feeding on the best rather than the worst. So there's a great verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam which describes what a sadhu is, so we can find out who's a real sadhu. Srimad Bhagavatam is an ancient text which gives the postgraduate study of spiritual life. I bet most of you have heard of Bhagavad Gita or read Bhagavad Gita. This is what comes after Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is one short conversation Krishna had with Arjuna. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the whole life and teachings of Krishna and all of his pure devotees. So highly recommend it. This particular verse, it gives some qualities of a sadhu, a real sadhu. So think of these. First is tolerant. Next is merciful. Next is a friend to all living beings. The next is not inimical to anyone. The next is peaceful. And the last is truthful or steady in spiritual reality. The verse is Tidikshiva Karunaka Surida Sarvadehinam Ajata Shatrava Shanta Sadhava Sadhu Bhushana. So A real sadhu is not just someone who's wearing robes or has a title or is charismatic. It's someone who has developed these saintly qualities. They make you want to become better, and they can soften your heart and bring you closer to Krishna and closer to Bhakti. I met several sadhus in my life that brought me onto this path. In my 20s, I was a traveling musician and just getting interested in yoga and meditation when I met a real sadhu in Nashville, a gentleman named Gayatri. And he really did change my life just by being with him, talking with him. He helped me to reorder my priorities, to become more interested in developing my spiritual practice, positive qualities, helped me to see that what I was really chasing after was not the highest. And he introduced me to other sadhus. That's one thing about sadhus. It's said that just like the sun is rising, first you see the sun rays, maybe the sky begins to turn pink before you see the sun. Similarly, you start to see and meet sadhus in your life. That's like the sun rising before Krishna appears, who is the sun. So when I met Gayatri, he gave me Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, introduced me to all the bhakti literatures and concepts, kirtan and prasadam, all the amazing things about bhakti lifestyle. And then he introduced me to another sadhu, Indradumna Swami, who was so expert at engaging people in service according to their propensities. I was a rock and roll musician, so he engaged me as a musician in his traveling theater group. And we traveled all around the world doing kirtan and plays, sharing the philosophy of bhakti to audiences in Europe and then in India. And then traveling with those devotees, I was in much better association. I was living with other bhakti practitioners, seeing serious yogis, serious sadhus that were my own age, and very inspired by that. That more than anything helped me to become a serious bhakti yogi. And then when I was traveling with him, I met Vaish, who many of you know, and he changed my life even more and became my primary teacher. And in that whole process, there was a definite thinning out of people I was associating with. The old rock and roll connections, I kind of had to let go. In our books, it's described that it's two sides. A Vaishnav is someone who associates with other Vaishnavs and also someone who gives up the association of non-devotees. And that's because the people that we associate with, the people we let into our feed, it has a huge impact, as we've been talking about. So it's best to do both if you can. Associate more with devotees. And if other people aren't open to learning more about bhakti and Krishna consciousness, be careful that they don't pull you back into your old ways. You might have to let go of some old friends and connections so that you can kind of let up off the emergency brake. Have you ever been driving, trying to press the gas, and it seems to be not going, and you realize, oh, the brake is on? So do you just keep pressing the gas pedal harder and harder, or do you let off the emergency brake? So similarly in our life, it can be easier to let go of a few things and a few people rather than just trying to keep press the gas. So my own story helped me realize that bhakti is given through people who have bhakti. It's a heart-to-heart transmission. So you need to find people that have bhakti. And as we mentioned, follow that simple formula. Do you remember the three parts? Humbly approach, render service, and ask questions. And that's the way to open up the heart of the sadhu so that their contents will pour into your life, into your ears, and into your heart. There's a great example of the powerful effect of sadhu sangha in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a character named Narada Muni. Has anyone heard of Narada Muni? He's possibly the coolest person in the universe. Especially as a former bass player, I really appreciate Narada Muni. He's a spaceman. He's so advanced that he can travel freely and fly from universe to universe. And he carries this big bass-like instrument called a veena. And he just is chanting kirtan all the time and showing up at just the right moment to influence the situation positively. And he shows up in all the different Vedic literatures. It's very cool. But he wasn't always like that. He was a insignificant little boy, son of a single mother in his previous life, just having a regular, ordinary upbringing when some sadhus came along and just so happened to appear at his house just as the rainy season was starting. And in India, there's a 4 month rainy season, or traditionally there was, when sadhus would stop traveling and just sit down and just read and chant for 4 months. So they happened to stop at his house and he was able to serve them and he was able to listen to them and he was very humble. He wasn't too talkative. He was not too interested in sports like the other boys. He just wanted to hear from them. So before they left, he asked if he could eat the remnants of their lunch and they said yes. So he ate the remnants of their lunch and he listened to them and they blessed him. And just from that one encounter, at the end of Narada Muni's that life, he came back in his next life as this liberated acharya, teacher of bhakti, and it's become one of the most, if not the most amazing teacher of bhakti that you can find anywhere. So never underestimate the power of association with a sadhu. And other places in our literatures, sadhu sangha, sarva shastre koi, lava matur sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy. It said, even just one moment. The literal translation is 11th of a second. 11th of a second association with a pure devotee, a real sadhu, guarantees all success in life. So never miss a chance to associate with sadhus. But remember the flip side too. You can be very badly affected by receiving association from non-devotees. There's another character that we find in the Mahabharata named Duryodhan. Does anyone know Duryodhan? He was a cousin of the Pandavas who always surrounded himself with the worst association possible. He had such good counsel from the elders of the family, people like Bhishma, Vidura. The wisest of all were continuously advising him to do what was right. But then after that, he would always go back to his evil brothers and friends who would always help him to forget the good counsel he received and proceed with his nefarious plans to try to take over the kingdom. It actually led his dedication to evil and trying to take over the world is what led to the battle of Kurukshetra in the Bhagavad Gita, the biggest battle the world has ever seen, the most destructive, hundreds of millions of lives lost because of his insistence upon bad association. So just like a little bit of association with a sadhu like Narada Muni can do so much good, be careful about associating with evil people because that can also pull us into a downward spiral, like the comment earlier from Tatagat. And Narada Muni, that one moment of association that led to him becoming a great saint and a great teacher, if we look at the butterfly effect, he ended up teaching so many amazing disciples, some of the most illustrious sadhus that we can imagine. People like Vyasadeva, who compiled the Vedic literature, Dhruva, Maharaj, Mrigari. Mrigari was a hunter who wanted to half kill all the animals because that's what his father taught him how to do. Before killing them, he would make them suffer. And Narada Muni saw this and asked him why, encouraged him not to do that. And just by association with Narada Muni, it's a good story. Maybe running low on time. Maybe we'll tell it another day. But just by associating a few moments with Narada Muni, Magari also became a pure devotee. This very violent hunter, in just a matter of moments, became a humble sage himself. So, one other point I wanted to make is that even if you can't associate with a devotee very easily, we can always read the books of a great devotee, of a great sage, to develop our bhakti. We might think of having to associate in person, but there's two different ways to associate. One is called Vani and one is called Vapu. Vapu is physical association, which may not always be possible. But Vani means the words or the teachings of a great sadhu. And that's always available. Even after they leave the planet, you can always associate with the Vani of a great teacher. In our line, in our tradition, highly recommend reading the books of Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, because he's presented all the teachings of bhakti in a way that's very palatable for the modern ear. And simply by reading his books, you get into the heart and the mind of a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, more than if you were even in the room with him when he was here 50 years ago. And it's always available. I think if we were to replace the time we spend scrolling with focused reading, who would agree that that would be a better use of our time, probably a better return on our attention, better for our mind and our heart? The practice I follow is to read a little bit of Bhagavad Gita, a little bit of Srimad Bhagavatam every day as a non-negotiable, even if I don't feel like it. I want to associate with Srila Prabhupada. I want to associate with these great texts as a practice. So it works for me. Does anyone else here read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam every day? And give a thumbs up if you like reading Srimad Bhagavatam every day. If you don't have it yet, we can definitely send you a set. If you're interested, Bhagavatam is where it's at. It's where you want to be reading. Much better than scrolling randomly. So we want to hear from pure source. We want to hear from a pure devotee. How we doing on time, JM? Do you like to leave some time for questions and answers?
Yeah, yeah. It would be good to periodically check in case people have questions, reflections, comments to enrich the conversation. Ridhima asks, how to not get affected by other people's energies or mood?
Well, it's difficult not to be affected at all. We can also, instead of receiving association, we can have the mind to give association. So if we have that intention to spread our light and spread our mood and realize that we don't necessarily have to take anyone else's stuff, that can be helpful. But it is a practice, and I find it's hard not to be affected because we're so sensitive. Over time, we can kind of curate our lives and avoid people who are envious or avoid people who have negative impact on us and just bless them and pray for them from afar. But there will be times, it is a very challenging world where we can't avoid going out there and into the waves of the ocean and feeling some of the energy from the people all around. But if we stay fortified in our daily sadhana every morning, you have the chance every morning to set yourself for success by doing your chanting, by doing your reading, by fortifying your heart and your mind. If you don't do that, it's easier to get swept away by the waves of other people's emotions. But if you take the time to deeply focus on Krishna consciousness and create that bright inner light, then you have more of a chance of keeping everything else at bay and having a positive impact on the people that you associate with rather than receiving any kind of negativity. So good sadhana, cultivation of who you let in. Oh, did I see another hand there?
Yeah, I think Michael is trying to comment.
Yeah, please.
Hey, yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. I was just gonna add to that. Uh those are great observations and points. Something that I've noticed that helps me, depending upon uh the amount of time that you know, if you're around somebody who you think has poor or negative energy constantly, it's a little bit different than this at times. But if it's just a moment where you're getting impacted by somebody else's negative energy. This is a trick that I try to do if I can recognize that this is happening, and I'll give you an example along with it. Say, this would be an example that happened to me. I'm on the bus, so I'm in public transportation, and there was a couple sitting a few rows behind me that were being a bit loud, you know, a bit obnoxious, I suppose, and didn't bother me too much. But there was someone sitting in front of me who it seemed to bother quite a bit. He was, I think, may have been homeless or something, but something was going on with him that he was dealing with, and the way he responded to those two was he like looked at him and he said, "Shut the f up, b word," you know, just like all like intense, and the whole bus kind of felt that, you know. Um, and they quieted down a little bit where we're still talking or something, and you know, he looked back over him and said something else. I don't remember what it was, but because they were behind me, he was looking in my direction. So I kind of interjected. I was like, "Me? Like, are you talking to me? Like, did I? You know, I didn't know if I did something or, you know, just in case." And he was like, "No, no, no, the people behind you." And then by me getting involved, the bus driver then kind of said something back there. What's going on? You know, and it calmed the situation down. But everybody was tense. You could tell just from that interaction. Like anybody, and probably the guy who responded that way was tense as well. And my gut instinct was uh not good energy. Like I was like his poisonous energy was then poisoning my energy. So I was thinking maybe some things that weren't so good. And I immediately recognized that and shut it off, turned it around to imagining me hugging the guy. Like I imagined my like maybe like auric field wrapped around his, trying to embrace him, even though he was seemingly the problem. Rather than combat his energy with more negative energy, I would envision, love or kindness or like a motherly sort of energy. And that calmed my own energy down. And I don't know what it did for the other person because I didn't ask him, hey, are you feeling any better by the time I got off the bus? But I concentrated on that idea for quite a bit of time, near around the time until I got off the bus. And I noticed that what that did for me was that thwarted any sort of negative energy or being consumed by the poison that he was consumed with. And my hope is that not only in replacing that energy in myself with good energy, maybe my having done that might have somehow subtly affected his energy and the others on the bus in a good way. So that's another thing that you can do. It's a little different if it's somebody who you're seeing day to day to day. Like someone that you live with and they're just constantly negative. It's a bit different. You can still practice that, but it may be a bit much. But in those instances where you're in a one off with someone and their energy is just toxic, you could try applying that, and it may at least help your own energy be conserved in a positive way.
Nice. Thank you for
Mm.
sharing that story. That really resonates. I've heard it said that if one person is calm, then a situation can't panic too much. You just one person breathing deeply and slowly will eventually bring everyone else into that same higher consciousness. Thank you. Amit, you have your hand raised?
I have a questions, and that applies to my life. Um,
Yeah.
so like I'm a lawyer and I'm a litigator here in Canada, and I've been working at my current job for 5 years. But the employer has been good to me. But 2 weeks ago, I found that they breached bunch of labor laws and human rights laws. So I ended up suing them 4 times in a span of 48 hours. But I still work with them. Um, and I'm struggling to differentiate between, the people who have been nice to me at work, but also the wrong acts that were done to me and I find as a lawyer, I was pretty good at like differentiating myself when the clients were suing people. But now that I'm the one who's suing my employer and I work there, like, every day, it's kind of like has gotten a bit awkward, and I don't know how to differentiate um, the the calm energy, my litigator fight 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 energy, and the awkwardness.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a legal professional, so I can't give that kind of advice, but spiritually, it sounds like a very complex situation. There's always going to be this kind of complexity in the material world. Always remember to take care of your own heart. You know the law very well, so you can just kind of follow the letter of the law and try not to get too emotionally mixed up in it, because that can have a really bad impact on our mind and our heart and our emotions. And really try to develop the qualities I mentioned earlier. Be tolerant, be merciful, be peaceful, and remember to just connect with the divine, to connect with Krishna. Listen for guidance from within. Realize this too shall pass, even when something seems impossible. This too shall pass. And there's a saying that Vice uses a lot, that things are never as good as they seem, and things are never as bad as they seem. So when things seem really bad, realize it's not as bad as it seems. And similarly, when things are really good, they're not as good as they seem. Everything kind of balances out. We get what we deserve, and so does everyone else. I mean, we should be very careful about how we act, not to, trip any landmines that we don't have to. But what's done is done, and try to get inspiration from these spiritual texts and listen for Krishna's guidance. It can come in any number of ways, from within, from other people, from these literatures, and we can't go wrong as long as we're following that kind of guidance. And I believe that brings us right to the end of our time. J.M. Prabhu,
Yes, yes, we are close to end.
was that helpful? I hope, Amit.
It was super helpful. I really appreciate it because I was like, I feel like I'm Arjuna in a battlefield. I can't figure out what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, and that's why Bhagavad Gita is so relevant, because we are like Arjuna. Life is very complicated, and it's not always clear, and we do have to fight, and we do have to remember Krishna. And reading Bhagavad Gita will help us to navigate these very strange situations.
Hey, thanks so much, Eka, for jumping in today and helping us out with a very rich, informative, practical session. Really, it was exciting. And thanks everyone also for joining in, asking question, reflection. It was very, very helpful.
Yeah, your questions made it so much richer. Thank you, everyone. And I'm really happy that I got asked to help today, and glad to be with all of you. Hope
And
to have some Sangha with you in the future.
yes, yes, we are planning more. He just came back after 6 weeks, right? Music festival in India, was that?
Yeah, that was another point I wanted to make. I didn't have a chance. If you have a chance to go to some festival with sadhus, like a sadhu Sangha festival, it can have a huge impact. Even just 1 or 2 days can charge you up for months or years. So it's worth investing the time and energy to go and be where all the sadhus are if you get the chance.
So yeah, so really back, and we will be utilizing maximum. We are lining up few more sessions with Eka so that we can benefit from his association. And Eka, if you are okay, we can sign off as Vaish says, keep the transcendental vibration going with a big chant of Hari Bol.
Yeah. Haribol!
Hari
Very
Bol!
well.
Oh.